This is Patrick Russell. I'm interviewing Barbara Jackson for the first time. This interview is taking place on August the 18th, 2021, and we are in Park Forest, Illinois. This interview is being conducted by the Making History Project. How are you doing today, Barbara?
Real good.
Yeah. Can you tell me when you were born?
Sure, I can tell you.
August
the 24th, 1952.
Okay, and where were you born?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right. Can you describe your hometown for me a little bit? How was it when you were growing up?
Well, it was all, I didn't have anything else to compare it to. It was just home. But as an adult and having left home, it's very hilly. I guess I knew that because I grew up there, but I didn't have anything else to compare it to. But it's really like a small San Francisco. It's a very, very hilly, and houses are built into it. It's a pretty place.
Mm-hmm. And how big was your family growing up?
6 of us. Mom, dad, 1 sister, and 2 brothers.
All right. And where did you fall in that?
I'm number 1.
Okay. Were you the favorite?
I don't think so. I think my brother, the baby.
So the youngest?
The youngest, yes.
Okay. And what did your parents do?
My mom was a homemaker. My dad, during the day, was a steel worker. And in the evenings and on weekends and that kind of thing, he's a percussionist. He's a professional percussionist. He's a drummer.
Okay. What type of music?
Jazz.
All right. So he had his own band?
No, he was Dinah Washington's drummer for 5 years. He played with Tijuana Brass. He was a studio drummer for King Recording Studio. So he was a professional drummer, but he didn't have his own band, no.
And how about you? When you're growing up, did you have any hobbies or play any sports?
I ran track. And in my home, everybody had to play an instrument, except my father. So I played alto sax.
Okay.
We didn't have to play drums. We had to play something.
All right. And did you go to high school?
Yes.
Okay. And,
Hughes High School.
all right. What year did you graduate?
I want to say 67.
All right. And you ran track there?
No, I ran track in elementary school.
Okay.
I did not run track in high school.
All right. Do you have any hobbies or sports in
When
high
I was
school?
in high school, marching band. I played alto. That's all I did. Well, I played volleyball.
All right. So
Just those 2 things.
you're in volleyball and you're in the marching band?
Yeah.
All right. And what did you do after high school?
University of Cincinnati. I went to school right after high school. And then I stayed a couple of years and I had a long break and then I went back to school.
Okay. So you're there for a couple of years.
And then I was out for a few years and then I went back.
All right. And what were you studying in those years that you first started?
Law enforcement.
All right. Then you took a break. Any particular reason why you took a break?
Well, it originated with my mom's illness and me being the oldest, me having to be at home. And during that time is when I think that during that time is when I actually went to, was it staying with me? I'm trying to think. Was it before or after that? I took the break because of my mom's illness. And I'm trying to think of when I actually went into I think I went to the Job Corps first. And then after that is when I went into the military. I think so.
Okay. So you enlisted in the military?
I enlisted, now you won't believe this, I enlisted in the military because I was in between jobs. You know, they don't lay off. I didn't have to wear my clothes to work every day. I was able to wear a uniform. So actually, that's really why I enlisted.
And you remember what year that was?
It'll be 77.
All right. And which branch did you choose?
Army.
Okay. And why did you choose the Army?
I think because of the recruitment, the way they recruited me, the things that I saw, the recruitment material that interests me.
Do you remember anything specific that you found convincing from the recruitment?
The path to a commission was interesting to me because I knew that I was going to be able to finish school. And the other thing is, I think it was only the Navy and the Army that I approached. And there was a forensic ballistics course that the Army offered, and that's what I wanted to go into. I wanted to learn about weapons and the trajectory and the things, that happens as the bullet goes. But I ended up repairing those weapons instead of learning the forensic part of it.
Okay. And you already were interested in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So that was why you're interested in forensics?
Yes.
Okay. So you enlisted in the Army, 77. What ended up being your highest rank in the Army?
E4, which is like a corporal.
Okay. And how long were you in the Army for?
Just under 3 years.
So ending around 1980 or so?
Mm-hmm. April.
Okay. And you went to basic training, right?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
Fort McClellan, Alabama.
And tell me, how did you handle basic training? What was it like for you?
It was tough. I was one of the older soldiers, or one of the older women there, so it was a little different for me. I felt like some of the stuff was a little foolish to me, but I had to do it. I had to do it. And obviously I did it well. I was able, I passed basic training. But it was a little tough. It was a little tough. But they see things in you that you don't even know about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And they will bring it out of you. And I know that when I got off of the bus at the base, years after I got out, I realized they must have said, "We really got one coming now." Because when I got off the bus, I had on this black mini skirt, I had on hip boots, I had all my Mary Kay bags with me, and some of my friends compared me to Private Benjamin, but that's what I was. That's who I was.
Did you end your career as Private Benjamin? Or were you changed?
I basically changed. I mean, I became a real soldier. I could do a lot of things that I never thought I could do before. But the part of me that you witnessed earlier with needing the mirror, that part, it's just me. So that part of me didn't change.
Okay.
My nickname in the service was Lady J. So that part of me didn't change. But I was able to do what the United States Army needed me to do.
Okay. And when you're doing your basic training, is it an all women's group, or were you?
And you know what? We were the first class of a co-op of a male and female class.
Oh, so you were mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
It
the
was
first. And
it really wasn't mixed we weren't mixed in the same barracks. It was like at the same base, the same part of the base. We didn't have men 5 miles away and the women. We were right there.
Did you do your training together?
No.
All right.
No, we did not.
And were your drill instructors female or men or both? Both. Who was tougher, the men or the female drill instructors?
Drill Sergeant Rowe, as old as I am, I'll never forget him. And Drill Sergeant Herkman. Drill Sergeant Rowe was a male, Drill Sergeant Herkman was a female, and they were tough as nails. I'll never forget them as long as I live. Never forget them.
Well, tell me one memorable story from one of those two characters.
The night before we were going out to bivouac, and Drill Sergeant Rowe was, explaining it to us, what was going to happen, what we were going to do. We were going to be living outside and in this foxhole. And when he just was telling us about the chalk and stuff we would have to put on our face, I wanted to know, I had my things locked up in the locker, my Mary Kay. And I was telling him I didn't have a problem putting the chalk on my face, but I needed to put a foundation on my face first. And it didn't go over very well with Drill Sergeant Rowe. But some of the girls understood, but I wasn't able to put it on there. And I had to put the chalk on my skin.
Okay.
But I did it.
All right.
I did it. The most memorable part of Drill Sergeant Rowe, she actually kicked me down in a hole. The foxholes are built for two people. And there were branches and things over the hole. We were gone all day. It had rained all day. So when we got back, I picked up a branch and I bent over and I was trying to see if there was any worms in there so I could flick them out. So when she came by, she asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm trying to see if there's any worms in here so I can get rid of them. And she literally she kicked me down in that hole and asked me, did I see them now? I'll never forget them. She was this big, but I'll never forget her.
So she was small.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you end up doing some advanced training after basic?
The supply training. We're at Fort Lee, Virginia. That's a supply school, or it was there.
All right. And was there any, before we get to your advanced training, was there any type of tension or resistance or anything about having women in the Army at that point? Did you get any of that sense? Or
the only time that I did is I ended up with, when I was working with the small arms, I ended up supervising a unit of guys. And it took them a minute to understand that I was the supervisor. But other than that, it's fine.
Okay. And what was the makeup of your class? How big was your initial class? Remember how many people?
I don't.
And did everybody make it through?
No. And it's a good thing they didn't. And one girl, we wanted to make sure she didn't. And so she didn't. She was not clean, Patrick. She was not clean. She had stuff leaking out of her foot locker. It was horrible. It was horrible. So we gave her a GI bath, a GI shower. I know.
What's that?
We just put her in the shower against her will. All of us did. Several of us put her in the shower against her will. Because she wouldn't do it on her own. She was just not a clean young lady. And the episode, with whatever it was she had in her locker, she ended up having to go to the commander about that. And the next thing we knew, she was gone. She was not clean. Not at all. We had to, But that was the worst episode, I think.
All right. And so now you're doing your advanced training for small arms. Tell me about what you're learning, what you're doing.
Well, actually, I didn't like it because it was not what I asked for. It was not the same thing. Repairing weapons is not the same as examining them for ballistics reasons. So I kept trying to explain to them that this is not what I asked for. And they kept showing me paperwork that says 45 Bravo, and 45 Bravo is indeed small arms repair. But if I'm sitting there as a recruit, I don't know what 45 Bravo is. I'm explaining to them what I'd like to do. They showed it to me that they have it, the program, and I'm saying, okay, I'll sign up. That's what I want to do. And they're okay, we signed up. And I took my oath and I went in to small arms repair. They wouldn't change it. They wouldn't change it. So I ended up going into supply in order to get out of small arms repair. I wasn't interested in repairing weapons, but that kind of thing happens.
Okay.
It happens.
So how long were you in small arms repair?
I didn't finish. I didn't finish it. They let me go into supply. I mean, I raised Cain daily, and so they let me go into small. Let me go into supply 76 Yankee,
All right.
and that I liked.
So tell me about what you're learning and doing in supply.
I learned things not just about linen and those kinds of things and keeping the bags supplied, but food supplies. The most interesting of it was learning how to supply hospitals. We call it central supply. So with all of the saline, I got to learn a lot of stuff about what they use in hospitals because we had to maintain those supplies. So that was really interesting to me. So I had a ball with 76 Yankee. And then, in the service, everybody likes a supply sergeant because, you might need an extra blanket or an extra pillow. Everybody likes a supply sergeant. So I liked it.
And
I enjoyed it.
what was like, run me through like a typical assignment of how you would do things on a typical day doing supplies. Like how do you calculate what you need and where it goes?
Orders. They come down, and when I get there in the morning, I have a list on my desk of things that this unit needs, and this unit needs, and then I divvy the work up, and I do what I have to do, and I'm there when the guys bring it back to me and send the order back complete. So a lot of the actual shelving and things of the supplies I didn't have to do. My job was to make sure that it was done.
Kind of like logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? And
Exactly.
how long did you do that for?
I completed my course there, and I did it until I got out of the military.
All right, so you were in supplies for basically 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And where did you end up serving with supplies?
I ended up in El Paso, Fort Bliss.
Okay.
And actually, when I got out of the military, I stayed there for a little while. I enjoyed the weather, so I stayed there. But I actually got out at Fort Bliss.
And what kind of units were you serving in Fort Bliss with supply? It was infantry. It was what was going on there?
It's just a supply unit.
Oh,
It's
just dedicated.
It's a logistics unit. It's a supply unit.
And so, how does that work? Are you supplying other units? You're not like attached to somebody, or
No, we supply the base where we are, and we supply many other units. Just it may be in small amounts. We might supply a particular item that we have at Fort Bliss that they don't have at Fort Sam Houston. And Fort Sam Houston is, it's a hospital unit. So it may be something that we have here that has a ship there, and something they have. So it was crossed. It was not just Fort Bliss.
got it. And did you ever deploy overseas?
No, all stateside. I wanted to go to Alaska.
Why?
I wanted to go, Patrick, because it's cold enough that I knew they had to have really good prices on fur coats. I know. But that's why I wanted to go. And that's probably why I didn't need to go.
I see this trend with fashion and Lady Jean.
I know it's kind of.
Okay. Well, what did you get? Some cowboy hats in Fort Bliss or boots?
Well, I mean, I do have them. I do have both, and I wear them now.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so you didn't deploy overseas. Were there any campaigns or operations that you were involved with in 77 through 80? That was peacetime.
It was peacetime.
All right.
It was peacetime. I think I saw more action in basic training than I did any other time, because it's serious. They're firing over your head, and you're trying to stay up under this barbed wire. And
all right, and then so no external conflicts. How about internal conflicts? Again, woman in the Army from 77 to 80. You mentioned you had a little bit of friction, I guess, supervising some men.
guys, yeah.
Yeah. How you said that wasn't like what happened? How long did that last?
Not very long. I mean, I I had to end up writing them up. Whoever had a problem with me being the supervisor didn't. If I had to write them up, I talked to them. If it didn't work, then I'd have to write them up. So after going through a couple of guys, then the message was sent, and there was no more problem.
And what was it? They just didn't respect your authority?
They just didn't want to take orders from the female.
Anything based on race? Did you have any problems with that?
I don't. Not that I remember. Mm-mm. Men like ladies. You know, I'm just a lady.
Okay.
So I don't have a.
So there's
I
more of
never
an
had.
issue with gender than there is race.
Absolutely. It was for me. My experience with the Army was much more with gender.
And what would be your most memorable moment from your service?
Well, the two that I mentioned, I will always remember. Getting kicked down in the foxhole and really being a little. I didn't understand what Drill Sergeant Rowe didn't understand about me needing to protect my skin. So those were two memorable ones. And then, we had to, there was an exercise that we had to get up to a particular area up a hill. And it was so, I'm glad this is just for veterans. It was so odd that, when you look through a lot of trees, if you're standing here and you're looking through the trees, you can't see all through all of the trees. But if you're inside the trees and you're looking out, you can see. So I had to use the latrine. And so I let the line leader know. So Drill Sergeant Rowe stopped us and he told me to go ahead. And I didn't know really what he meant because I didn't see a building. And he let me know that the latrine was wherever I needed it to be, but I need to go ahead. So I wouldn't hold everybody up. So I
This
go
is during basic?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going through these trees, wood area, and I would turn around. Every time I turned around, I could see everybody, but I didn't know that they couldn't see me. So, oh my God, Patrick, I can't tell you how far I went before I could urinate. But I thought every time I looked out, I thought they could see me. So I went so far, and then after that, I forgot what they told me poison ivy looked like. So then I had a problem. It was bad. It was bad. But you know what? It made me more woman than lady. It did. It forced me to do some things that I would have found appalling. But being able to do it made me proud. Being able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I want to do again, but the fact that if push comes to a shove, I can do it. I'm not the girl that's going to call her husband first if the house is on fire. I'm a car fire department. I can do it. I can do it. If I can put the fire out, I'll try that. But those kinds of things I never thought I'd be able to do because I never thought I'd have to. So I appreciate the woman that the United States Army made. I do.
Sounds like it's an equal opportunity employer.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And all right, so then you get out of the Army in 1980, and what do you end up doing?
I went to work for the Army for a while outside Atlanta, which was Fort McClellan, Georgia. So when I got out, I had them move me to Atlanta, and I went to work at Fort McPherson for a little while. And I don't really remember if it was just that I wanted to apply for a job up here, or if it was because it was during the time that that guy was taking the kids and killing the kids in Atlanta. You remember?
Mm.
Anthony Williams, Tony Williams. It was a period where they were taking kids in. Okay, I was there then. And my mother did not want me there with my two kids. She was having a fit after fit after fit. So I started applying for jobs up this way. And I got one at Fort Sheridan. And so I left Fort McPherson, I left Georgia, and I moved to Illinois.
And you were working for the Army, but not in the Army.
Not in the Army, no.
And what were you doing for the Army?
Just clerical work. And when I got to Fort Sheridan, I was doing the same thing, except I started working in medical claims. And I went from medical claims to the chief union steward. So I ended up doing more of the work with the union than really I did with my job. So they terminated me, but they couldn't. I mean, because they can't fire you just because you are representing the union. So I went through that whole thing at Fort Sheridan, but that's how I got away from Fort McPherson.
Okay. And there's a point that you ended up going back to college, university?
Yeah. Not until I got back to Illinois. Because I have 2 master's degrees and both of them are from governors. So it didn't happen until I got back to Illinois. And I left there, and years later I went to Loyola and I finished in 2007.
Okay. You finished what?
My doctorate in education from Loyola.
Okay. And what did you end up doing with your doctorate in education?
I went back to the school system and I took my first principalship. And I had been in school administration, whether it was a principal or dean or some kind of school administrator, until I left Elgin High School. And that was maybe 2005. Yeah.
So how long overall were you a school administrator, dean, or principal?
Well, I was in education. I think I was in education about 16 years. All of it was not administration. I served as a speech teacher for a while. Not a speech therapist, just a speech teacher for a while. And the district where I was a speech teacher is where I came back as the principal. And that wasn't an easy thing to do because at one point I was with the teachers in a teacher's lounge complaining about the principal. And then the next school year I was the principal. So it was a little touchy for them to follow me because they wouldn't let go that I used to be one of them. So I'm just saying that to say that was probably not the best district for me to serve, But it turned out okay. It worked out okay.
Mm-hmm. And did you enjoy working in the schools?
Oh, yeah. I got back to the school system because there was a period that I worked for corrections, law enforcement and corrections. And when I got the position at Stateville Prison, I was a counselor, and I noticed looking in the guys' files that it seems like most of them started having problems in the 4th and 5th grade. That's when they started having problems with authority, whether it was male or female. So I just decided that, just housing these guys is not going to help anything. I really wanted to be someplace where I could prevent it. And so that's when I wanted to go back to the school system. And that's how I got back to the school system. I never went back to corrections after that.
And did you do anything with your observations to focus on those 4th and 5th graders?
Well, no more than to know what kinds of things to expect from them at the 4th and 5th grade and what kinds of things I could implement if the administration would permit, So there was something called Snowball and Snowflake I don't know if you know about it, but it's an it's elementary snowflake. Snowball is for high school, but it's a motivational program. And so you just talk to the kids about real life situations. And that's what I was able to do. I went from one district to the next district, talking to them under the snowflake program. And it was just very, very plain, to tell them things you don't need to go into a criminal justice system, because you never know how it's gonna end up. You could go in for something very minor, maybe have to spend 6 months for something, and it'll turn into 6 years, and you won't get out. And I remember doing that on some occasions. And the very last time, the principal, it's not that she didn't appreciate it, it's just that she felt like it brought her students so far down. It was like, you know what? I wish you hadn't been the last person to speak. But they need to know. It doesn't need to be sugarcoated. They need to know that if you are in prison, incarcerated for taking somebody's purse, and they give you 6 months, but a guy attacks you in the shower, you're going to protect yourself. And when you do, you got more time. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted them to know, you don't even involve yourself, because you don't know what's really going to happen.
Did you ever in your speech share with the fact that you observed from your prior work in a prison that early on there was these indicators of where people that didn't respect authority
Yes, I did.
Ended up there?
Mm-hmm. And I let them know that it was your group. The ones of you that's listening to me now, it was this group, where they started having problems with authority. And it went from one stage to the next to having problems with authority on the street, not just in the school, and then in the home, and then they end up in jail. And it never fails. It's always that way. It's the only time that it's not that way is when they end up in, dead instead of jail. That's the only time it's not that way. We all have rules that we have to follow. And it's going to be like that forever. Mm-hmm. And so I just didn't sugarcoat things. I wanted them to know the truth. So I did Snowflake for a while. And that's all I think I had to offer them. I had a couple of stories, but some of these kids were not really old enough. But when I was at Stateville, I was Richard Speck's counselor while I was at Stateville. And I spent some time as an officer with Jeff Ford when he was at the federal prison downtown Chicago. So I had stories that they could go back and tell their parents. It's like, oh, she knew this, and she was really with this man, and she said this is when he started having problems. So whatever I could share with them that would keep them out of the system, I shared with them.
Mm-hmm. And then your school work and career ends in 2005?
I'm going to say, I think it was 4 or 5, yeah.
All right. And then what do you do with yourself from there?
Well, I actually opened a school, small school. I'm proud to say that the state of Illinois told me, it wasn't solicited, that it was the first school of its type in the history of the state of Illinois. I opened a small school for foster kids. Because that's a group of children that we feel like it's just an invisible group of kids. Like we have a set of throwaway kids and we don't. So I had special needs and foster kids, and you often find that they're one and the same. And I ran that school for 3 years. When we lost the lease on that school, the contract said that they were responsible for helping me find another location, and they did. But the second location, the school was up like on the second or third floor, and the children had to come up. And the kind of behaviors that my children had, I could not afford for them to be out, off of the bus and coming up 2 or 3 flights. Somebody's going to come up with a black eye. Something's going to happen. So I did not take that assignment, and they only had to offer me the one location. So my school closed. And that was the end of it. Well, I did write a book, though. and you can get it on Amazon. but it's called Throwaway Kids. It's about those kids. So I am a published author, but that's the only book that I have that's actually published.
Okay.
But it is called Throwaway Kids.
And what have you been doing with yourself since?
Some seminars, Department of Children and Family Services here in Illinois. When people want to open child care facilities, there is a segment in order to get your license where you have to have 6 hours of special needs training. And so I just threw a little group together and started offering the 6 hours of special needs training. So I did that, and I'll still do that. I am going to, I just teach and do seminars wherever I can. I'm going to New Orleans the 27th of this month to teach a management class for new board members for the cooperatives. So just whatever I can do in the field of education, I try to keep my hand in somewhat.
And what about this office? Where are we, and what do you do here?
This is the Veterans Closet and Resource Center, and this is the Resource Center. This is the section here, and I serve as the Veterans Advocate here, and that just means that I'm here to help them understand their benefits, help them get their benefits, help them with their compensation, do any paperwork, just to help them with their benefits.
All right. And what else does the Veterans Closet do?
Everything that you see here, or everything that's here in the Veterans Closet, is free to any vet. They just have to prove that they are veterans. They get to shop here once a month, and they don't pay for anything. If they are close enough, sometimes we will be able to deliver it to them. We have a van. Most times they will pick the things up, but they can do that once a month. And sometimes you'll come in here and we have furniture and clothes and linen to the ceiling. You'll come back the next week and it's bare. So we get donations in, and the veterans come and take it out.
Okay. All right. So it seems like you keep yourself busy. Any other projects you got your fingers in?
Nope. That's it. That's
Okay.
it. That's it. I just had some surgery, so that's it. I'm good. This is about all I do. I do this 3 times a week.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add that I did not ask you today?
No, I'm glad you gave me a chance to talk about some of those things, because I've not spoken about some of those things in many, many years, especially with the children and trying to keep them out of the system. So, no, I think you asked the right questions.
All right. How about this final one?
Oh, boy.
Is there anything you would like to tell future generations? Any words of wisdom or advice?
No, I don't want to sound like what people call holy rollers, but I'm going to tell you it's absolutely true that to have a friend, you need to show yourself friendly. And there is a cliche, I know it is, that says that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But those things are true. Those things are true. I never say anything about my educational background unless I need to use the title for something. But other than that, people don't even know. I just help wherever I can. It doesn't have anything to do with Dr. Jackson, because that's not my name. That's just something else that I feel like the Lord permitted me to obtain. But I think it was in order for me to continue to serve people. I serve people. And I don't think you could be blessed any more than to serve people. So I think that's all I would tell them to try and do in whatever field they choose, to see themselves as serving people.
I think that's some excellent advice, Barbara.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and share your story and your the work that you do and continue to do.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for your service and sacrifice for your military service for our country as well. All right. So thank you.
Thank you.